As somebody who makes a living trying to predict what Masashi Kishimoto is going to write next in his stories, I will admit that I've been surprised by a fair amount of the things that have gone down in Two Blue Vortex. The twists and the turns of this story have genuinely really thrown me for a loop at times. And if being entirely real, it appears as though to me that Kishimoto is trying to be much more mysterious and unpredictable with Boruto than he was with Naruto. Because while Naruto had reveals like Tobi is Obito, which we all saw coming, and Nagato isn't the real leader of the Akatsuki, which we also all saw coming, and that Itachi was a good guy, which actually genuinely shocked me, and that finally Kaguya was the final baddie of the Naruto universe, which shocked me in a different, less pleasant way, Boruto, much more than Naruto, seems to barrel its way through whatever the fan base expected from the story, all in the best way possible. Because while there have been some developments that I saw coming, like Himawari being a Jinchuriki, Kurama's return, the identity of the Shinju, specifically Jura, there have been multiple moments in Two Blue Vortex alone that I didn't see coming at all. And one of those moments happened in Chapter 9. Well, I guess a couple of those moments happened in Chapter 9. See, I believe in Chapter 9, we were all prepared for something along the lines of, oh, Himawari is a Jinchuriki. Whether that be the next generation of Kurama Jinchuriki or some kind of pseudo-Ten Tails Jinchuriki because of Naruto's time as the Ten Tails Jinchuriki, we all knew that Himawari was walking away from Chapter 9 as a Jinchuriki. But one thing that I didn't anticipate and didn't prepare for at all was Boruto being unable to use his karma marking. See, because based off everything that we know about Boruto up until this point, he should be able to use it in some capacity. In fact, based off how Boruto was able to place Momoshiki in his place when Momoshiki was trying to get Boruto to give in to despair in Chapter 80, made a lot of us believe that with 3 whole years of training, Boruto would come back with better usage of his karma marking than ever. And yet, when Boruto pulled up on Kawaki and Kawaki activated his karma marking, which caused Boruto's karma marking to resonate and begin to activate, Boruto, at the behest of Kashin Koji, had to flee the scene. Most likely because the manifestation of Boruto's karma spelt bad news for Boruto and everybody else in Konoha. But why? Boruto at 13 years old was able to manifest and control his karma marking with a seemingly high level of control, and he did this multiple times throughout part 1 of Boruto. Most importantly, in battles where he faced off against Kawaki or Code. And while Boruto did obviously lose control of his karma marking and therefore turned into Boroshiki after the battle against Ishiki, which caused him to stab Sasuke's 6-tome Rinnegan, and he lost control again in the battle against Boro, and again in the battle against Kawaki where Kawaki kills him, Boruto also used his karma marking in a productive and intelligent way by absorbing the portal of Daikokuten that Kawaki was trying to get him to jump into in, I believe, Chapter 78. In fact, Boruto was able to use his karma marking to absorb this portal so effectively that Kawaki realized that he would have to kill Boruto. He couldn't seal him, and thus this means Kawaki, who'd been using a karma marking for the majority of his life, saw and respected Boruto's ability to use the karma marking at such a high level that he knew that he would have to kill him in order to get rid of him. So why, 3 whole years of training later, is Boruto worse at using his karma marking? And how is Boruto going to regain usage of his karma marking before his fated battle against Kawaki that was foreshadowed in Chapter 1, where he very much activates his karma marking willingly? Has Momoshiki's presence gotten stronger inside of Boruto? Or is there another Otsutsuki in play? And what does any of this have to do with Orochimaru? Well, today we're going to answer all those questions and more, but first, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And if you love the idea of me breaking down your favorite chapters of manga, go ahead and follow my other channel, The Weeb Commander, where instead of talking about Naruto and Boruto, I talk all other anime and manga. And if you just like the idea of me breaking down anime news and manga, go ahead and follow my anime podcast, Taku's Anonymous, where me and Danny Mata break down everything that happened in anime and manga this week. It's available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. And if you want to see me live, come on down to Comic Palooza Memorial Day weekend, May 24th to the 26th, where I'm going to be doing 6 panels talking about anime and hanging out with you. See, for the entirety of Two Blue Vortex, I've been watching Boruto take on high-level threat after high-level threat after high-level threat. Like Code, the Shinju, Mitsuki, and now Kawaki, all without the usage of his karma, and thus I figured that Boruto didn't deem any of these people he was fighting as high-level threats. And while that is technically true, it's not true for all of them. See, because while sure, Boruto was able to easily trounce the likes of Code, Kawaki, and Mitsuki, all without needing any kind of power-up, Boruto did seem to be substantially overmatched in his battle against the Shinju, who were able to corner him with relative ease. In fact, the Shinju, or more specifically Juro, went so far as to say that they were sparing Boruto in this fight, saying that their basal nature wanted them to consume Boruto and turn into a divine pine tree and end the world. However, because they were curious about developing their ego, that they weren't gonna do that, implying that the four of them could have killed Boruto if they truly wanted to. And while that point is up for debate as literally anything else in manga, it is undeniable that this was Boruto's most difficult fight. And thus in that moment I couldn't help but wonder why Boruto wasn't activating his karma marking, the move that he had used to power up all throughout part 1 of Boruto to reach the true heights of his power. And now we know it's because he couldn't, which is perplexing, but also possibly explainable. See, one of the biggest revelations of Chapter 9, outside of the fact that Kurama's alive and Boruto can't use his karma marking, was the fact that for some reason, Kashin Koji and Boruto's hideout is in a snake cave of sorts. And we deduced in the last page posted on this channel that that snake cave is either Ryuchi Cave, and therefore belongs to the giant snakes and the great white snake sage, or that cave belongs to Orochimaru, who is the only person on Earth who dedicates their underground hideouts with tiles that look like snake scales on the floors and walls, and snakehead lamps. And thus, while it is technically a possibility that they are in Ryuchi Cave, the grander possibility is that somehow Kashin Koji and Boruto have teamed up with Orochimaru. But why would Boruto and Kashin Koji need to team up with Orochimaru? Well, mostly because there's a fair chance that Orochimaru, just like Amado and Shikamaru with their massive intelligence, managed to scientifically break themselves out of omnipotence. See, while Amado's able to come to the conclusion that Kawaki clearly has a karma marking that he altered, but he doesn't remember altering it, and therefore his memories must have been played with without his knowledge, and Shikamaru was intelligent enough to bug Amado's laboratory and get this information, Orochimaru doesn't necessarily have a direct scientific line that would help them identify the fact that they've been affected by omnipotence. However, if you were to come to me and say, I believe Orochimaru is the smartest person in the entirety of the Naruto universe, I wouldn't have much evidence to argue against you. And thus, if Amado and Shikamaru are able to do it, I really see no argument that could be made for why Orochimaru couldn't do it. And thus, to me, there's a fair to high chance that Orochimaru is at least suspicious of their own memories, and therefore a good person to possibly bring your woes to as the person that everybody believes killed Naruto. Something that, mind you, Orochimaru will be able to check simply by using Edo Tensei. On top of this, Orochimaru and Naruto seemingly reverse engineered the karma marking without even knowing. Meaning, if you're having karma mark woes, there's really no better person you could scamper off to. But what do I mean by reverse engineered the karma marking? Well, think about the karma marking. It is a mark placed on a suitable host that grants the user access to the power of the person who placed that mark on them. On top of this, the mark contains the DNA and chakra, at least a little bit of it because chakra is life force, on the person who placed the mark on the future host. And slowly but surely over time, the DNA of the person who placed the karma marking on a suitable host will leak into the host's body and integrate with their own DNA, allowing, with a certain amount of time, for the placer to take over the host's body. And this is almost exactly how the curse seal, and more specifically Orochimaru cells, work. See, the curse seal, much like the karma marking, is placed on somebody that the placer believes will be a suitable host for said mark. And just like with the karma marking, those who aren't suitable for this marking die. However, the mortality rate of those who receive the curse seal is actually much lower than those who receive the karma marking, as only 9 out of 10 people who receive the curse seal die, which seems like terrible odds, I'm aware, but it is still much better than the karma marking. Mind you, Ishiki has been on Earth for 2,000 years, and over the course of those 2,000 years, Ishiki only found 2.5 people that were suitable to receive his karma marking. And that's 2.5 if you count Jigen as a full 1. But in actuality, over the course of 2,000 years of looking for a suitable host for his karma marking, Jigen, who absolutely had the ability and power to grab as many people he wanted to place karma markings on, only found one person in Kawaki that was truly suitable for his reincarnation. But back to the curse seal. After a suitable host is found and given a curse seal, they are able to tap into the chakra and powers of the person who gave them said curse seal, as those who have the curse seal bestowed upon them are able to tap into Orochimaru's Senjutsu chakra, making them sages of sorts. And should Orochimaru die, like they did in their battle against Sasuke, by leaving a small amount of chakra and DNA in every single curse mark that Orochimaru placed on a mere myriad of different people, every person with a curse seal can act as a conduit for resurrection for Orochimaru, meaning that Orochimaru can essentially have as many karma markings as they want, which is much better than the karma marking. Because while yes, it is true you can have as many karma marked individuals as you want, the second that an Otsutsuki decides to reincarnate in one of their hosts, every other karma marking they have in the entirety of the universe disappears right then and there. A drawback that the curse seal just simply doesn't have. And the advantages don't end here for Orochimaru. As we saw from Kabuto at the beginning of the Fourth Great Shinobi World War and in the middle of it, that in order for Kabuto to become more powerful, he's grafted a small amount of Orochimaru's cells onto his body. And we can see with time, slowly but surely, that Orochimaru's cells are taking over Kabuto's body, turning him from a man into a snake man, similar in appearance to Orochimaru's true form, the giant white snake that lives inside of Orochimaru's body, implying to us that Orochimaru's flesh works very comparably to the karma marking, in that it'll take over the body, mind, and physique of anything that it's grafted onto, like a more physically represented karma marking awakening, as the unlocking of a karma marking is entirely unseen. It's just you wake up one day and you're 100% Otsutsuki and Momoshiki pops out of your chest like an alien baby. And there's really only one person on Earth outside of Orochimaru and Kabuto that has a total and complete understanding of both the curse seal and what Orochimaru's flesh can do to a person. And that person is Sasuke, as Sasuke had a curse mark for a number of years and fought Kabuto at his snakiest. And Sasuke, rather conveniently, was the person who trained Boruto for the first year of the time skip. And even if Sasuke was fully affected by omnipotence and still believed that Boruto was Kawaki and vice versa, Sasuke would still believe that Boruto had a karma marking and that karma markings are big scary. As I guess technically omnipotence would have Sasuke believing that Kawaki stabbed his eye out. And thus possibly because Sasuke knew so little about the karma and therefore was afraid that one day when training with Boruto a little harder than usual, that Boruto would run out of chakra. And once again, like he believed Kawaki did in the past, an Otsutsuki would take over Boruto's body, and once again, Sasuke would be put in a predicament where he would have to battle against one of his students. Something that the now one-eyed Sasuke probably wasn't too keen on. And thus Sasuke, in the pursuit of more knowledge, brought Boruto to Orochimaru, the one person in Sasuke's life who would A, believe whatever he said, B, wouldn't care if Sasuke was a rogue ninja, and C, have a good shot at either destroying the karma marking or allowing Boruto to control it. And thus the real reason that Kashin Koji and Boruto are laying low in Orochimaru's hideout isn't to lay low. In fact, it's to get control over the karma marking. Because an often forgotten aspect of how the curse seal works is that the more the curse seal is used, the more susceptible the user is to the whims of the placer. That is to say that if Sasuke were to continually use his curse seal anytime he was inconvenienced, kind of like he did in Shippuden, Sasuke would eventually be unable to say no to anything Orochimaru asked, which is why Orochimaru was so keen to get a curse seal on him in the first place. Because one, they knew that Sasuke needed this power, and two, they knew that Sasuke would continually tap into this power, which meant that sometime down the line, eventually Sasuke would be unable to say no to the idea of Orochimaru saying, guess what? You're my new perfect host, which is why Itachi was so dedicated to the idea of freeing Sasuke from this curse seal. And if the similarities between the curse seal and the karma marking were made intentionally, as I believe they were, then there's no reason for us to believe that there wouldn't be a line of similarity between that aspect of the curse seal as well. That is to say that Kashin Koji and Boruto are probably aware of the fact that the more that Boruto or any person with a karma marking uses their karma marking, the more susceptible they are to the whims of the person who gave it to them. And ironically, in the circumstances of a karma marking, the end goal whims are eerily similar to what Momoshiki is trying to accomplish with Boruto. Because while Orochimaru gave the curse seal to Sasuke so he could switch his body over to Sasuke's and presumably live in Sasuke's body for more than 3 years, Momoshiki's also using the karma marking as a way to switch his body to Boruto's and achieve rebirth. And thus, if we go through with this line of thinking, it brings us to a couple of possible explanations as to why Boruto doesn't use his karma marking. One, because Boruto and Kashin Koji have identified that it should truly only be used in situations Boruto deems emergencies, or Boruto has already overused his karma marking so much that any further usage of it will all but guarantee a Boroshiki takeover. But then this leaves us with a lingering question: how is Boruto willingly using his karma marking in the battle that was foreshadowed in chapter 1 of the manga? Well, that could be explained in one of 3 ways. One, you can go through with the line of thinking that Boruto can only use his karma marking in true emergencies, and thus he deems his battle against Kawaki a true emergency, and therefore worth the inherent risk that comes along with the activation of the karma marking. Or the second possible scenario, that Boruto already understands that Konoha has been destroyed before this fight. And if Konoha is destroyed and only he and Kawaki are alive within a 100-mile radius, Boruto is willing to activate his karma marking because he knows that even if Boroshiki comes out, at least no innocents will die. And the third possible way this question could be answered is that by the time that Boruto and Kawaki come to that fated battle, Boruto has regained control of the karma marking, and now, like in part 1, can use that power freely. And I believe the third option to be the most likely. But why? Well, because giving Boruto the karma marking and then never allowing him to use it again is a bit like giving Goku Super Saiyan and then giving him the Brawly syndrome, where every time he activates it, he hulks out and kills everybody around him, forcing him to never use it again. Sure, that works for Brawly, who's not the main character of the story, but if you apply that to the main character of the story, it's kind of weird. But this kind of thing happens in shonen manga all the time. The MC gets a power-up, but then they lose access to that power-up. And thus, inevitably, one of the largest plot points of the future story is the MC trying to find a way to regain said power-up. And this runs perfectly in parallel with what happened with Boruto's father post his time skip. As one of the biggest talking points post time skip in Naruto was the fact that training with Naruto was difficult because if he got pushed too far, Kurama would leak out of him and he would awaken to a version 2 Jinchuriki cloak. And thus Naruto would go out of control, killing everything around him until eventually Kurama fully manifested and killed Naruto. And because of this post-time skip, Naruto needs to train with Yamato, who's the only person who's able to suppress his Nine Tails chakra. But even still, in very early Shippuden, Naruto loses control of Kurama's chakra and battles against who else but Orochimaru in his version 2 Four Tails cloak, which Orochimaru with no hands is barely a match for. On top of this, let's not forget who told Boruto immediately to get out of there because his karma marking was activated. That would be none other than Kashin Koji, Jiraiya's clone, who was his trainer for probably close to 2 years in the time skip. And thus, if there is truly connections being drawn between Boruto and Naruto's time skips, then probably during the time skip while training with Kashin Koji pushed Boruto too hard, at which point Boruto either ran out of chakra or willingly activated his karma marking to get an edge on Kashin Koji. And because of this, at this moment, Boroshiki came to the surface. And the undeniable power of Boroshiki was almost enough to kill Kashin Koji. Very similar to how a four-tailed version 2 cloak Naruto almost killed Jiraiya. And this would explain why Kashin Koji is so on top of Boruto, as he's afraid of what he could do in his transformed form. However, Sasuke, Orochimaru, and Kashin Koji all trying to crack the code of Boruto's karma marking isn't the only possible explanation as to why Boruto no longer uses it, because there's many out there who believe that Boruto's fully alpha'd Momoshiki, as Boruto was able to survive the onslaught of negative feelings in the world turning on him that Momoshiki thought would break his spirit. And thus the Otsutsuki that Kashin Koji and Boruto are worried about slipping out of his karma marking is no longer Momoshiki, but Shibai. Because, like we already stated, Chapter 80 of Boruto appears to show us that Boruto is fully in charge of Momoshiki now, even though technically, and I believe Chapter 78, Momoshiki takes over Boruto's body and absorbs the shadow release that's holding Kawaki, so not a great sign. But if we do go through the line of logic that Boruto has control over Momoshiki now, some people are stating that the real reason that Boruto can't access his karma marking is because his latent connection to Shibai is awakening. And thus the more he uses his karma marking, the more the awakening grows. And the more of Shibai's power he gets access to. And technically, this would make a fair amount of sense, as Rasengan Uzuhiko appears to be eerily similar to whatever jutsu we saw Shibai using in the one panel we have of his full body. And thus to assume that over the course of the time skip that somehow Boruto's connection to Shibai grew deeper isn't the craziest conclusion to come to. And this does technically align with the idea that the more Boruto uses his karma marking, the more the Otsutsuki in question gets control of his body. But I believe the other theory is much more likely. It's grounded in characters that have already been introduced, and Shibai still feels really far off. I mean, we haven't even addressed Momoshiki as an issue yet, so until we get over that hurdle, I don't think we should start introducing mountains we have to jump over. But I'm curious as to what you guys think. Why do you believe Boruto can't use his karma marking? Do you believe it has to do with Momoshiki, Shibai, or maybe even Orochimaru? Tell me in the comments below, and while it goes down there, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell.